Success can take many forms, but most importantly, it can be a positive and uplifting story. This is Success in Iowa. Well, thank you for joining us on Success in Iowa. This week we travel to Saunders County. Now, Saunders County is not part of Iowa. You know that. However, we're going to visit with a couple of young men from Wahoo, Nebraska, who are students at the University of Nebraska in Omaha and have decided to travel the entire state of Iowa. They are in the process of visiting all 939 incorporated towns in the state of Iowa. Joining us, Seth Varner and Austin Schneider. Both of you, thank you very much. You're crazy busy and you're taking the time to do this. Thank you for setting aside a little bit of time to inform us of what you're doing. This is a really exciting thing, and you must be just getting solid, positive comments just all the time.
Yeah, so thank you, Todd, for having us on the show. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so we just started about 4 weeks ago doing Iowa, and like we were talking about pre-recording, even we're already up to 8,000 followers on our Facebook page, and it's been experience of a lifetime already just in these first few weeks.
Let's jump back to last year when you did Nebraska. Just that in itself is an undertaking. Who came up with the idea to even attempt it?
So that was originally my idea. So there's a whole kind of backstory to it, but I'll kind of summarize it real quickly for you. So when I was about 10 years old or so, my dad and I did something somewhat similar. So he was working on a genealogy project on Ancestry, and he was taking pictures of like old homes, churches, stuff that our family was familiar with. Me being 10 years old, I didn't know even what genealogy was or any of that stuff. So I'm like, I don't know what my dad's doing. I'm just gonna take pictures of little murals in town, sculptures, kind of stuff like that. We did like 30-ish towns or so, then that ended. Fast forward all the way to 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic starts. And Austin and I, we're just kind of sitting around at home, pretty much doing nothing. I mean,
what can you do during a pandemic, really?
Yeah, we were working at like Dairy Queen, maybe like, playing basketball outside, real, hardly doing anything. And then the idea kind of popped back in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of always wanted to visit our town, Nebraska. And I had flashbacks to that trip with my dad. So I go up to Austin one day. I'm like, hey, we should go visit every town in the state this summer. And
then off we went from there.
Yeah. And then it just really took off from there.
So that wasn't enough. You decided you wanted to jump across the river and do Iowa. What went into that decision?
Well, it started off just kind of like a joke. We always talked with people and we're like, oh, what state's next after Nebraska? We're like, they're like, what about Iowa? We're like, that's a good one. We just didn't take it seriously. But then, so we took a spring break trip down to Oklahoma City, and we were just going through these different small Kansas towns heading down there. And we were just talking about how fun it would be to just go and do another state. And then we just thought most reasonably would be Iowa, since we go to college right next to Iowa. So yeah, that's how that kind of came about.
It was really just kind of spur of the moment, because otherwise we were thinking about doing like historical markers in Nebraska or something like that. But the more we thought about it, we were like, you know what, it'd be more fun to go see entire towns again in a whole different state where we're really not familiar with it. Because Nebraska, like, we know where things are, like we've lived here all our life, but Iowa, everything is new to us. Most of these communities, we haven't been to any of these before. So every town we go to, it's a whole new experience that we don't know what to expect usually.
Was there any trepidation at all when you first started investigating Iowa and realizing that, the number of towns is going to jump up by about 40% here?
We knew it was going to be more. Like, actually, on the way down to Oklahoma City, I was driving. He looked at how many towns were in every single state in the U.S. just for fun. We were just going through saying, "Oh, Kansas has 600. Iowa's 940. That's a lot of towns."
Yeah.
And like
stuff, just different ones. Yeah, we were just comparing.
Yeah, we were just comparing stuff, and then we got to Iowa 939. It's like, I don't know. I'm pretty confident we can do it. So obviously, we're not super worried about it. We gave ourselves about half a year to do it, and we did Nebraska in 2.5 months. So I think we could easily knock out Iowa in about over double the time.
How far in advance are you planning each day trip that you're doing? Because it looks like, for lack of a better way of putting it, you're kind of grabbing the low-hanging fruit at first, because you're doing the things that are closest to you, and then you just slowly start going farther and farther out. How far in advance are you planning each trip?
So it really just depends. It's at least 2 days in advance. So kind of the strategy is I'll look at a map. I'll see, I have like this little map. I highlight all the towns we've been to, and I'll just see what area we haven't been to yet. Kind of pick an area, be like, okay, we can reasonably visit these 17, 18 towns in a single day. Um, Kind of list those out, kind of guesstimate it. I post that on Facebook at least a couple days in advance for people to give suggestions. And then the actual itinerary doesn't get made until the day before we leave because I want to make sure anyone who has any suggestions for, places to eat, places to see, etc., we want to make sure we capture all of that. Granted, we can't do everything, but we pack our schedule as full as we possibly can.
Yeah, our days get long. We stretch everything out as much as we can, much daylight as we can use.
Sunrise to sunset. That's what it's been. So
Some of these communities that you've already visited, they have a tourist bureau. You can tell that there are a lot of visitors coming there. Others, you may have been the first person through town that didn't live there in 3 weeks.
yeah. That kind of reminds like Gray.
Yeah, Gray. Yeah, Gray. We were just, I don't know even how many people are in that town. What is it, like
80?
We'll just say 80, yeah, something like that. We didn't see anybody until we were just in the downtown area, and this one old lady is just driving down the street. She drove by a few times, like just looking like, who's in our town?
Mm-hmm.
And she stopped outside. She went to the mail office or something, and I was just like, oh hey, and then we just had a conversation and just to talk about what we were doing and all that.
Yeah, and she was so excited because it's like, this little community. The main thing they have, there's this rose garden, which blooms in the middle of summer. So like when we got there, it wasn't full bloom or anything, but they don't have necessarily a whole lot of touristy things to offer. So when they see a couple of random college kids walking around town, snapping pictures of the post office and some old ancient buildings, and people really wonder what we're doing. Like if they don't know who we are and then we explain it, they get super excited.
Has anything else jumped out at you? You mentioned the tiny community of Gray. Any other surprises on your trip so far?
I'm just trying to think of surprises. Well,
or just anything that stands out in your mind.
I was just gonna say, talking about the scenery is different. So Nebraska, it's mostly just flat over here. But like once we got into Iowa, the scenery is completely different with how many hills, like the Los Hills, for example. It's just, the scenery is just completely different.
I say honestly, I didn't even know the Los Hills existed until we started this trip. Had no idea they were even there. I just assumed it was cornfields out there or something. So yeah, scenery wise, there's that. But I guess just in general, what's kind of surprised us is just how many people, how quickly this whole thing's blown up, and how many people have certain things they want us to see, and just how like important it is to them that we go and see these things. Like for example, I think it's pronounced Exira the other day. They have a couple of just weird things there. So like there's this one thing, it's called Plow in the Oak. And this is like their local tourist attraction. It's kind of a big thing. Farmers set up a plow against an oak maybe 30, 40 years ago, a long time ago. And the tree has slowly started to consume the plow. So the plow is completely within the tree. That's a big like touristy thing in that town, just because that's what's special to them because it's so unique. Another thing is like the oldest tree in the county is planted right dead center in the middle of two gravel roads in intersection. They call it tree in the road. So there's these things we're surprised. It's like, well, that you wouldn't expect that to be like, the big thing in town, but everyone has their own special thing. And like, I get it.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Something that's happening around the state of Iowa, and there's a lot of communities around the entire country, that the need for the town is not the same that it used to be. Back, when they were founded 100 or 125 years ago, a lot of farmers in the area, the populations were larger in some of these communities, so they had a lot more business. Now, people have moved away, the businesses have moved away, and you're going into some of these communities that have maybe 60 or 70 people. What really excites me about what you gentlemen are doing, you're putting pride back into some of these communities, and people who maybe haven't even been home for a while are seeing what you're doing, and they're making comments on there. Hey, that's my hometown. Wow, you should stop by here. That's the type of thing that puts pride back into areas and can start to rejuvenate some interest in small town America.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal. I mean, with Nebraska, our whole motto was there's something to do in every town. You just got to go out and find it. And that's true. No matter what community you go to, you're always going to find something to do. Even if that town's been quote unquote abandoned for 50 years, that one shop that's still there, that alone could rejuvenate the entire community if people know about it.
Yeah, I was just say, just like you were saying, just shine a light on these towns that people are starting that they could just be forgetting about, and just to like someone that moved away or like neighbors to that town, they're like, oh, I forgot, I forgot all about that place, stuff like that. Yeah.
There's a lot of that. Yeah. When you click the individual pictures on our posts, even there'll be a picture of an old church or something, and there'll be 6 people that say, I was baptized in that church, or I used to go to church there, or people that say like, oh my, I haven't been to that business in 30 years. I can't believe it's still there. They tag 3 of their friends. We have to go back sometime. And so people are starting to kind of see like, you don't always have to go to Council Bluffs or Des Moines or some major city to find something to do. You can go back to these little small towns, and you can go shopping, you can check out the local history. Like there's so much to do, and that's kind of the goal, is to get people to realize that there's more than just the cities.
Anyone who's jumped on your Facebook page has noticed that when the 2 of you are in a picture, you're holding an Energizer Bunny. There has to be a story there.
Yeah. So back when we did Nebraska, I just thought it'd be a funny idea if we just had like a mascot to come with us. And so I looked in the corner of my room, and I had just this plush Energizer Bunny. And then so it came with us, and it kind of relates to us because the Energizer Bunny never stops going, just like we never stop going.
Yeah, so he's kind of our mascot in a way. And we almost brought a life-size cutout of Chris Evans, Captain America, but figured that'd be too awkward to carry around to every town. So Energizer is a good mascot for us.
So have you already planned ahead for when you have to start traveling farther? I was visiting with some people about you guys the other day, and when you travel from Omaha, Nebraska to, say, Decorah, Iowa, up in the extreme northeast part of the state, it's a drive to even get there before you've started doing the tour. So do you have a plan already in place for when the trips start getting longer?
I would say, well, once we get out east, we will probably start staying in hotels, start doing like, instead of just driving back to Omaha every time, we would start staying in a hotel and do like 2-day trips or 3-day trips.
Mm-hmm. And actually, there's already been surprisingly 5 or 6 people around the state have offered us free places to stay at like there's a bed and breakfast, a lake house near Okoboji. People are offering crazy stuff like that. Yeah, people are already reaching out to us and saying, we want you to come to our bed and breakfast. Part of that is probably the one with the shout out. The other part is it's Midwest hospitality. Like they just want to do something nice for a couple of college kids, bring in some more local business and everything. Like, so we're getting pretty lucky there. So we will definitely take up some people on those offers. And yeah, that'll probably be early June, I would assume we would start probably staying places and then maybe doing 2, 3, 4-day trips.
All of this sounds like a whole lot of fun, and you're doing it while you're studying for finals. I can't imagine, the way I wish I had that much energy again. I really, really do. But what I was going to say as we're wrapping things up here, people of my generation have a habit of talking about your generation and saying that there's just not a lot of drive, and there's not a lot of ambition, and it seems like everybody wants something handed to you. My opinion is you need to look a little harder, because you guys are out there, and what you're doing, I think, is inspiring, not just for your generation, but for everybody, whether it's Iowa, or I'm sure you've already heard it from Nebraska as well. And I know, Seth, are you the one that's planning on writing a book about this experience?
Yeah, so we work together on the Visit 531 Nebraska book. So I write the book, and then he kind of helps you put together like the QR codes and some of the graphics on the inside of the book. Might help me out with the Iowa book too. It'll probably be the exact same thing, kind of what we did. And yeah, so it'll include facts about every town, how they got their name. And the really cool thing about like the book is, instead of putting 10,000 pictures in the book, because that's impossible, we put a QR code for each town. So as times change, it's 50 years down the road, whatever mobile devices they have 50 years down the road, or even today, you take that out, you scan the QR code, and an album will pop up with all of our pictures from that town. And so hopefully our books will survive hundreds of years down the road. And then when people have those Google glasses where they can just scan it with their retina or whatever, it'll
sometime in the future,
sometime in the future. So yeah, it'll be a really cool book. It'll kind of combine history. It'll be a travel guide, kind of all in fun. So really looking forward to putting that together.
And I'm looking forward to watching the number of people following you grow. I know you have a GoFundMe page. I'll put a link to that in the comment section underneath this video. So if anybody wants to help you guys out, you're college kids, you're not rolling in dough here, and you're still out there doing this stuff. So again, Seth Varner, Austin Schneider, thank you very much. It's Visit 939 Iowa, and good luck with the rest of your trip. Stay the speed limit, you'll save on gas. and hopefully when this is all over, maybe we can visit again and learn a little bit more about all your experiences.
Oh yeah, we'll have all kinds of stories to tell, and we'll have a lot more time too.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.